Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're here to cut through the noise, distill stacks of information, and, well, give you that shortcut to being genuinely well-informed.
That's right.
Today, we're diving into something pretty complex. Workers' compensation fraud, specifically in New York. There's a new bill proposed, and interestingly, some really strong opposition.
Yeah, we've got two key documents in front of us. First, the actual text of the bill itself, that's A8429B or S7950 in the Senate.
Okay.
And second, a letter sent straight to Governor Kathy Hochul from the iFraud Foundation laying out their opposition.
So our mission today.
Our mission is really to unpack these. We want to help you understand the different angles, what the bill wants to do, why iFraud disagrees so strongly, and what's really at stake here.
All right, let's dig in, because this isn't just some abstract policy debate, right? This stuff directly impacts businesses, workers, maybe even consumers across New York.
Absolutely. It touches a lot of people.
Okay, so let's start with the bill, A8429B. The legislature, when they propose something like this, they usually start by defining the problem they're trying to solve. What's their take? What problem are they seeing?
Well, it's quite specific, actually. The bill really zooms in on employer workers' compensation premium fraud.
Employer fraud, okay.
Yeah, the legislature seems convinced that, especially in construction, some employers are significantly shaving off their labor costs, basically misclassifying workers or underreporting payroll to dodge paying the full insurance premiums they owe.
And they have evidence for this.
They cite the Century Foundation. It suggests, maybe 10 to 19% of construction workers who really should be employees aren't. We're talking potentially millions of workers nationwide.
Wow.
And that translates, according to the bill's findings, into maybe billions in unpaid taxes, plus costing insurers around $5 billion a year just from this kind of employer premium fraud. It also connected to broader wage theft issues in construction.
So the bill sees employer premium dodging and wage theft as the core problem needing a fix.
That's the clear focus in the bill's justification, yes. It's about leveling the playing field for honest employers, too.
Okay, that's one side. But then you've got the iFraud Foundation's letter to the governor. They paint a picture of a different crisis, don't they? What are they pointing to?
They really shift the focus.
Yeah.
If you read their letter, the term that jumps out is staged construction accidents. That's the crisis they identify.
Staged accidents, like faked injuries?
Exactly. They talk about organized networks, runners, attorneys, medical providers, all allegedly working together to manufacture claims. They point to federal indictments, investigative reports, workers' comp board sanctions as evidence that this is widespread and, well, the real urgent problem.
And their argument is that this is what's driving up costs.
Precisely. They argue these fabricated claims inflate premiums, hurt solvent employers, and ultimately, raise costs for everyone, for consumers. They also add this interesting sort of political note. They suggest that legislation that they think would help honest employers and actual victims struggles, while this bill, which they frame as just another tax on employers, is moving forward.
So it raises that question you mentioned earlier. Are we even talking about the same kind of fraud or just totally different priorities?
That seems to be the crux of the disagreement, yeah.
Yeah.
Different problems demanding different solutions, perhaps.
Okay, let's get into the solution proposed by Bill A8429B then. If the problem is employer premium fraud, how does this bill propose to tackle it? What does it actually do?
So the bill amends the current workers' comp law by adding two key sections. First up is Section 151A. This creates something new. A fraud assessment commission.
A whole new commission. Okay, who's on it?
It's a 10-member commission appointed by the governor.
Yep.
It's designed to have representation from different groups, 3 from labor unions, 2 from self-insured employers, 2 from insured employers, 2 from insurers, and 1 claimant attorney.
Interesting mix.
And on top of those 10, the chair of the Workers' Comp Board, the commissioner of labor, and the inspector general are automatically on it as voting members. They call that ex officio. And they serve 4-year terms.
Got it. So a new commission, how does that connect to actually funding the fight against fraud? That seems key.
Yeah, that's where the second new section, 151B, comes in. This section establishes the assessment for workers' compensation fraud investigations. Basically, a new fee.
A new fee on employers?
Yes, specifically to fund investigating and prosecuting employer-related fraud, things like willful failure to secure compensation, or not keeping accurate records.
And who decides how much this assessment is?
The chair of the Workers' Comp Board sets it annually, starting potentially by November 2025. And this is important, they do it in consultation with the existing Workers' Comp Fraud Inspector General and this new Fraud Assessment Commission they just created.
Okay, and you mentioned this is a new assessment.
Critical point, yes. The bill states this assessment is in addition to the existing annual assessment employers already pay under Section 151.
So potentially two separate assessments, funding oversight and fraud.
That seems to be the structure. And all the money collected from this new assessment goes into a brand new fund, the Workers' Compensation Fraud Investigation Fund.
Another new entity. How is this fund managed, and what exactly is the money used for?
It's under the joint custody of the Workers' Comp Chair, the Labor Commissioner, and the State Controller.
Yeah.
The money, once appropriated by the legislature, is earmarked for investigating and prosecuting those specific employer fraud cases we talked about.
Employer fraud specifically.
Right. And here's a key detail. The bill mandates that at least 50% of this fund has to be distributed to district attorneys for these prosecutions.
Half of it goes straight to the DAs.
At least half, yes. And there's a provision that if a DA is deemed unwilling or unable to handle these cases, the Labor Commissioner can redirect those funds.
Interesting check and balance there.
And the commission has to report quarterly on how the money's being used. The whole bill, if signed, takes effect immediately.
Okay, so that's the proposed solution. New commission, new assessment, new fund, money for DAs, all focused on employer fraud. Now, the opposition. This is where iFraud comes in strong.
Very strong. Their letter uses the phrase strong opposition. They argue this bill creates, and I'm quoting here, duplicative structures, uncapped assessments, and governance conflicts. They think it'll actually undermine the fight against fraud.
Okay, let's break that down. First, uncapped and duplicative assessments. What's the worry there?
Their big concern is that the bill gives regulators the power to levy this new assessment with absolutely no limit, no cap, no formula spelled out in the law.
Just whatever they decide each year.
That seems to be the fear. They contrast this with the existing Section 151 assessment, which they say has been managed carefully, even reduced recently.
Yeah.
They see this new second levy as undoing that progress, creating uncertainty for businesses.
And they call it duplicative.
Yes, because employers are already paying the first assessment. They frame this new one as potentially becoming a politically managed cash pool, making yours more expensive and less competitive. A patchwork of assessments is the phrase they use.
Okay. Their second point, redundant enforcement. What's redundant about it in their view?
This goes back to efficiency. They argue, look, New York already has a Workers' Compensation Fraud Inspector General. That office has statewide power to investigate fraud.
Right, we mentioned them earlier.
And on top of that, you have district attorneys who already prosecute workers' comp fraud under existing criminal laws. So iFraud asks, why create this new commission with overlapping duties?
They think it'll just cause problems.
Yeah, they predict jurisdictional fights, maybe different standards for bringing charges depending on who's handling it, more lawsuits. Their research, they state, shows duplication tends to dilute accountability and just confuses things.
Okay, makes sense from their perspective. Finally, the governance conflicts of interest. What's the specific issue with who's on the new commission?
This is a really pointed critique. They look at the makeup of that proposed commission, the union reps, the regulator reps, and they note these groups hold a voting majority.
Okay.
But iFraud argues these groups don't directly pay the new assessment. The employers do. So the payers don't have the majority control.
And the claimant attorney seat.
That's another red flag for them. They point out that claimant attorneys whose clients could potentially benefit from, say, bigger settlements if there's more pressure on employers, get a vote. But there are no explicit safeguards mentioned in the bill against potential conflicts of interest.
So they worry about the commission's priorities.
Exactly. They warn that without clear ethics rules, term limits, or what they see as balanced representation, the commission could suffer from mission drift and politicization. It might not stick to its intended fraud-fighting purpose.
Wow. Okay. So strong opposition on several fronts. But iFraud doesn't just criticize, right? Do they offer any alternatives? What do they think should be done?
They do. They argue against creating, new bureaucracy and new taxes. Instead, they push for what they call targeted, data-driven prevention.
Like what, specifically?
Well, first, they say strengthen the existing Inspector General's office, give it more resources to do the job it already has.
Okay, use the current structure.
Right. Second, expand real-time data sharing. Get carriers, regulators, prosecutors talking to each other more effectively. They actually mention an initiative iFraud itself started to facilitate this.
So better information flow.
Exactly. Third, invest in technology. Use modern tools to detect fraud patterns, especially those staged accidents and organized schemes they're worried about.
Makes sense.
And finally, they say, collaborate more with existing partners, nonprofits, industry groups that are already doing education and prevention work. Don't reinvent the wheel.
So their message is basically enhance what we have, use data and tech, collaborate better.
That's the core of it. They wrap up by saying fraud isn't fought with duplicative commissions or uncapped taxes, but through collaboration, transparency, accountability. And they explicitly ask the governor to veto this bill and focus on reforms that enhance existing law enforcement and data sharing.
Okay, so pulling this all together, what does this mean for you, the listener? We've laid out two pretty different takes on what the core problem is with workers' comp fraud in New York.
Yeah, and consequently, two very different paths forward.
One path, the bill's path, focuses on employer premium fraud, maybe broader wage theft too. The solution, a new commission, a new assessment dedicated to funding investigations, particularly by DAs.
Right.
Then there's the other path, laid out by iFraud. They see the biggest fire as staged accidents, these organized rings. Their solution, forget new structures, bolster the existing inspector general, use better data, deploy technology, work together more smartly. They see the bill's approach, especially the funding and governance, as actually counterproductive.
So you have this real policy clash. Both sides would say they want to protect workers and honest businesses.
Absolutely. Nobody is for fraud. But how you define the most pressing type of fraud and how you think it's best combated, that's where they diverge sharply. It really highlights the complexity here.
It's fascinating, isn't it, how the same goal-stop fraud leads down such different roads depending on your starting point, your definition of the problem.
It really is. And it leaves us, and you listening, with a crucial question, I think. When you get information like this from different sources, different viewpoints, maybe even conflicting data, how do you weigh it all? How do you figure out what the real impact of a proposed law might be on a system this complicated, this important, like workers' compensation? Something to really think about.